He walks into a quiet shop on a London side street like he's done it 100 times before. He says 4 simple words to the woman behind the counter. His wife stopped by yesterday for a bag. That's it. That's all it takes. She reaches under the counter and hands it over without a single question. This man is Bill, and in the next 10 minutes, everything about his life is about to fall apart. Because what's inside that bag isn't just money. It's the reason people are about to start dying. At the beginning of the movie, we're introduced to Bill as he steps back out onto the street, opens the bag just enough to check its contents, and finds stacks of cash sitting next to a passport that isn't his own. He's calm. Controlled. This is a man who's done dangerous jobs before. He pulls out his phone and dials his wife, Jill, just to check in, just to hear a familiar voice before whatever comes next. But mid-sentence, something makes him stop talking. A man across the street. Not doing anything obvious. Just, there. Watching a little too carefully. Bill doesn't panic. He ends the call, and in one smooth motion, boards a passing bus. While the doors are still open, he drops his phone into a stranger's coat pocket without them noticing a thing, then slides out the back exit just as the bus pulls away. The man tailing him is still inside, trapped, watching Bill vanish into the crowd through the window. It's the kind of move you only pull off if you've been trained to disappear. And Bill has. Once he's put enough distance between himself and whoever was following him, he spots an unattended motorcycle, hot-wires it in seconds, and rides off into the city, bag still in hand. Now here's where the movie pulls back the curtain a little. We cut to the CIA's London office, where a man named Wells, the one running this entire operation, is pacing, demanding updates. His assistant, Marta, tells him something he really doesn't want to hear. Bill has been completely unreachable for the last 20 minutes. In this line of work, 20 minutes of silence might as well be a scream for help. Wells orders every CCTV feed in the city pulled up immediately. He wants eyes on Bill, and he wants them now. It doesn't take long. Cameras catch Bill weaving through a crowded subway station, and just like that, the CIA has him back on their radar. But so does someone else. Marta delivers more bad news. The bag of cash Bill was supposed to be protecting has disappeared from their tracking. Bill, sensing he's surrounded again, ducks out of the station and jumps straight into a taxi. What he doesn't know is that the men chasing him already caught his plate number, and they're feeding it straight to a man named Xavier, someone we're about to learn has far bigger ambitions than just catching one CIA operative. Xavier's people trace the taxi instantly. Meanwhile, Bill borrows the driver's phone to reach out to his own people, tapping out a short, urgent message to Marta, "I'm surrounded." Wells doesn't hesitate. He clears out a nearby cement factory and sends the coordinates straight to the taxi so Bill has somewhere safe to run. It should work. It should be simple. Except Xavier has already hacked into the driver's phone, and he quietly swaps the destination without either of them noticing. Bill starts to realize the streets outside look wrong. This isn't the way to the factory. When he confronts the driver, the man insists the GPS is correct, that they're exactly where they're supposed to be. They're still arguing when gunfire suddenly tears through the taxi. The driver is killed instantly. Bill barely scrambles out alive, taking cover inside a nearby building as an intense, desperate shootout erupts around him. He fights for every second, but eventually, his gun clicks empty. And that's when you realize, this is a man who's completely out of options. Back at headquarters, Wells discovers Bill never made it to the factory, and the search starts all over again, except this time, they're too late. Xavier already has him. And Xavier isn't interested in cash or passports. He wants one name, the Dutchman. A man Bill apparently has information on that nobody else does. For hours, Xavier tortures him, shocking him again and again, but Bill doesn't break. Not one word. By the time CIA agents finally trace the signal and storm the location, Xavier is long gone, and Bill is lying dead on the floor. You'd think that's the end of Bill's story. It's not even close to over. We're taken to the office of a scientist named Dr. Frank, working late, alone, when a CIA agent shows up asking him to activate something he swore wasn't ready, an experimental process that can pull memories directly out of a dying or freshly dead brain and transplant them into someone else. Frank protests. He says the technology is years from being safe. The agent tells him it doesn't matter, they've got 48 hours before those memories are gone forever, and national security is on the line. Frank finally agrees, but only under one condition. He already has someone in mind to receive those memories, and he's fairly sure the CIA is going to hate the choice. That choice is sitting in one of the most heavily guarded prisons in the country. His name is Jericho Stewart, and according to the warden, He is exactly the kind of man you lock away and hope to forget about. Violent from a young age, incapable of empathy, and completely unbothered by the lives he's taken. When CIA agents arrive to collect him, Jericho barely reacts. They sedate him without resistance and take him straight to Dr. Frank. Frank studies him for a moment before asking a strange question: has Jericho ever had surgery before? The question rattles him more than anything else has. Frank explains, almost gently, that he already knows about the traumatic head injury Jericho suffered as a child, the one that changed the shape of his brain forever. He tells Jericho things are about to change, then sedates him completely. While all of this unfolds, Xavier is sitting in front of television cameras giving a live interview, and this is where we learn exactly who we're dealing with. He's the head of a powerful company in Spain, and he's just been accused of treason by his own government. His response is chilling in its confidence. If exposing corruption makes him a traitor, then he wears that title proudly. He claims the entire system, politicians, police, judges, all of it, is rotten to the core, and he intends to expose every single one of them. When the reporter asks if he's trying to overthrow Spain's government, Xavier corrects her. He's not interested in one country. He wants to bring down every corrupt government on earth, convinced that only total collapse can force real change. Watching this unfold, the CIA realizes they're not dealing with a simple criminal. They're dealing with someone who thinks he's about to remake the entire world. Back in the lab, the procedure finally begins. A scientist explains the science to Wells in simple terms. Bill's brain has been kept artificially active just long enough to preserve his final memories, and because of the damage to Jericho's frontal lobe from that childhood injury, there's actually room in his brain to receive them. It shouldn't work. But it does. When Jericho opens his eyes, pain shoots through his skull. Wells leans in close and says one sentence that changes everything: "You're Agent Bill now, so tell me about the Dutchman." The second that name registers, fragments of memory come rushing into Jericho's mind: the bag of cash, the deal, all of it. But he stays silent. Wells pushes harder, mentioning Bill's wife and daughter, and this time the memories hit even harder. Jericho can see them. Feel them. Almost as if they belong to him. And still, he looks Wells dead in the eye and says he doesn't remember a thing. Furious, Wells storms out. Not long after, the CIA receives a chilling video message, this time from the Dutchman himself. He announces that he now has control over the entire American military weapons system, and he can fire whatever he wants, whenever he wants. His price for standing down: $10 million and a U.S. passport, no questions asked. We then see the Dutchman standing in a phone booth, dialing Bill's old number. But it isn't Bill who answers, it's Jill, his wife, who tells him flatly that Bill is dead. The Dutchman says nothing. He just hangs up. And this is the moment the whole picture finally snaps into focus. Bill wasn't just delivering a bag. He was the one negotiating with the Dutchman on behalf of the CIA: cash, a passport, protection, everything, in exchange for handing over control of that weapons program. That's what was in the bag from the very first scene. And Xavier wanted that program for himself, which is exactly why he grabbed Bill before the deal could ever go through. Meanwhile, Jericho is being driven back to prison when he suddenly turns on the agents escorting him, sending the car spiraling out of control until it crashes. Both agents die. Jericho survives, and in a moment of cold calculation, drags an unlucky bystander into the wreckage and sets it on fire so the world believes he died too. Free, and hungry, he stops to eat, gets into a brutal fight outside the restaurant, and steals a van to make his getaway. But behind the wheel, a wave of pain rips through his skull, and more of Bill's memories surge in, this time, an address. His feet, or rather Bill's instincts, carry him straight to Bill's own house. Inside, he ties up Jill, and for one terrifying moment, it looks like things are about to go somewhere horrifying. Then he sees a photo on the nightstand. A family. Smiling. And something in him hesitates. He walks into the daughter's room instead and watches her sleep, memories of a love he's never known flooding through him. Standing in front of the bathroom mirror afterward, staring at a stranger's face that somehow feels familiar, it clicks: the bag of cash. He goes back to Jill and demands to know where it is. She swears she has no idea. Oddly, he tells her not to be afraid. He's not going to hurt her. He takes some cash and jewelry instead, and disappears into the night. The instant he's gone, Jill triggers the house alarm, wired directly to the CIA. But when they call to check in, it's Jericho who picks up, using the correct security code like he's done it 100 times, casually explaining the daughter must have hit the button by accident. He hangs up. On the other end, the agent is left stunned, because there's no way a stranger should know that code, or sound exactly like the man who used to live there. Elsewhere, the Dutchman watches a new message from Xavier, a direct threat demanding the weapons program or else. Rattled, he reaches out to the Russian embassy instead, offering full access to the American system in exchange for $10 million in Russian citizenship. To prove he isn't bluffing, he promises a live demonstration at 6 o'clock that evening. The Russians decide to wait and see. Back at CIA headquarters, Marta breaks the news to Wells. The intruder at Bill's house wasn't a random criminal, it was Jericho, alive and clearly absorbing Bill's memories at an alarming rate. Wells sends every available agent to find him. Jericho, meanwhile, is selling off the stolen jewelry when another memory hits, the bag, hidden somewhere in a library. He rushes there, searching frantically but coming up empty, until he logs into a computer using Bill's old credentials and stumbles across Dr. Frank's contact information. The CIA spots the login instantly and warns Frank that Jericho is likely on his way. Before Frank can even process it, Jericho is standing right in front of him, complaining of blinding headaches, saying Bill's memories won't stop flooding in. Frank takes him to a pharmacy, and there, something small but telling happens. Jericho thanks the cashier, pays properly, behaves like an entirely different person than the violent criminal on record. Frank realizes, in that moment, that it isn't just memories transferring. It's the man himself. And there's a ticking clock attached to it. Within 48 hours, all of it, memories and everything else, could vanish completely. Jericho, hearing this, becomes desperate to find that bag before his one shot at a new life disappears along with Bill's memories. What he doesn't know is that Xavier has been listening to the entire conversation through hacked security cameras, and immediately sends men to grab him. The CIA gets there first, arresting Jericho and hauling him back to headquarters. Wells offers a deal, help track down the Dutchman, and he'll get the bag of money and his freedom. Jericho agrees. But Xavier isn't done manipulating the board. He fakes airport surveillance footage using facial-altering technology, making it look like the Dutchman just landed in London. Wells takes the bait, sending Jericho back toward prison while he rushes to the airport himself. The second he's gone, Xavier's men ambush the convoy, slaughtering nearly everyone inside. Somehow, Jericho survives, hijacking a car and sending it crashing off a bridge into the water below just to escape. At the airport, Wells realizes he's been played. The man in the footage was just an innocent traveler. Meanwhile, injured and bleeding, Jericho makes his way back to Bill's house, hiding in the garage to patch himself up, only for Jill to find him first, gun raised, demanding answers. So he finally tells her everything, the memory transfer, the mission, all of it. She doesn't believe him at first, until he starts recalling details about Bill's life that no stranger could possibly know. That's when it hits her. He's telling the truth. As the clock strikes 6, the Dutchman makes good on his promise, hijacking an American missile mid-flight and detonating it in the sky in front of Russian officials. It works exactly as intended, they're sold, and the deal is official. Back at the house, Jill quietly asks Jericho if he can actually feel Bill somewhere inside him. He tells her he remembers everything, every detail of Bill's life, and how deeply Bill loved her. Jill breaks down completely, because for the first time since his death, some piece of her husband is sitting right in front of her. She lets Jericho stay. The next morning, over coffee, Jericho notices the words on Jill's mug, University of London, and asks if that's where she works. The moment she says yes, another memory detonates in his mind. The bag isn't in just any library. It's in hers. He grabs her keys and rushes out. While he's gone, Xavier's partner, Elsa, breaks into the house and kidnaps Jill and her daughter. Meanwhile, Jericho finally digs up the bag inside the university library, only to find Xavier waiting for him the second he tries to leave. Before he can react, Elsa stuns him unconscious. At the same time, Wells learns Russian agents have entered the city, correctly guessing they're about to move the Dutchman out of the country. He follows them, and it isn't long before CIA agents, Russian operatives, and Xavier's men are all converging on the same building. Gunfire erupts everywhere, civilians scattering in panic. Elsa drags Jericho deep into an experimental lab inside the building while telling Xavier to get to the plane and wait, she'll bring him the Dutchman personally. But Jericho isn't done. He rigs an explosion using chemicals from the lab, breaks free in the chaos, and finds the Dutchman himself. He tells him he intends to finish the deal Bill started, but first, he needs one small favor. A tweak to the program's code. The Dutchman, with no reason left to refuse, makes the change without hesitation. Before they can leave, Elsa storms in and shoots Jericho, dropping him instantly. She forces the Dutchman to hand over the flash drive containing everything, and the moment it's in her hand, she kills him without a second thought. But she underestimates Jericho one final time. Bleeding and barely conscious, he drags himself up and crushes her skull with a single, brutal blow, killing her instantly. He grabs the drive, escapes the carnage, and vanishes into the city in a stolen ambulance. Xavier, still waiting on his plane for Elsa, instead gets a call from Jericho, who tells him the plan has changed, he has the drive now. Xavier's response is ice cold, bring it to him personally, or Jill and her daughter die. That's when Jericho realizes the two people he's come to care about most are already in Xavier's hands. Wells calls, begging him not to go through with it, warning that if that program falls into Xavier's control, the fallout could be catastrophic on a global scale. Jericho doesn't care. He tells Wells that Jill and her daughter are the only thing that matters to him now, and hangs up. He arrives at Xavier's location and cuts through every single guard standing between him and the exchange, until it's just the two of them face to face. Xavier holds Jill and her daughter at gunpoint, demanding the drive. Without hesitation, Jericho throws it straight into the plane. True to his word, Xavier lets the hostages go, but not before shooting Jericho several times and leaving him to die on the tarmac. Wells arrives just moments later, only to be hit with devastating news over the radio. Xavier has already launched a missile, and it's minutes from wiping out their entire location. Wells turns on Jericho, blaming him for signing all their death warrants. But Jericho, barely conscious, tells him to relax. He already took care of it. Just before the Dutchman died, Jericho had him rewrite the program's code so that the very first missile fired through the system would automatically lock onto whoever launched it. The missile screams toward them, and at the last possible second, changes course entirely, slamming directly into Xavier's plane and turning it into a fireball in the sky. Xavier dies exactly the way he tried to kill everyone else. Days later, on a quiet beach, Dr. Frank and wept of the experiment. Frank admits that Bill's memories have almost completely faded from Jericho's mind, but he believes if Jericho reconnects with something that truly mattered to Bill, there's a chance those memories, and the humanity that came with them, could resurface. Right on cue, Otter walk up the beach toward them. And the second Jericho lays eyes on them, something shifts behind his eyes. He raises his hand and makes a small, familiar gesture, the exact one Bill always used to silently tell his family he loved them. Jill recognizes it instantly, and everyone standing there understands what it means. Bill hasn't disappeared at all. Wells turns to Frank and tells him Jericho won't be going back to prison. He's staying, and from now on, he's working for the CIA. Frank just smiles. And that's how the story ends, not with the villain winning, not with the hero dying for good, but with something stranger and more human than either. A killer who was never supposed to feel anything, learning what it means to love someone else's family as if they were always his own. Now here's the honest truth, if you made it all the way to this line, you already know this channel puts in the work to bring you movie breakdowns like this one, start to finish, no shortcut. But channels like this only survive because people like you decide to stick around. So if you haven't subscribed yet, that one click actually matters more than you think, and skipping past it means you'll probably miss the next breakdown when it drops. Don't let that happen. Hit subscribe right now while you're thinking about it, and before you go, drop a comment telling us what part of this story hit you the hardest. We read every single one, and honestly, they're the reason we keep making these. See you in the next one.